Hello, good morning everyone. If you can hear me and my voice is clear, please type yes in the chat. Yes, so good morning everyone, and we are going to start with today's webinar. So today's webinar topic is water infrastructure, finance, and innovation. So when we are discussing about water infrastructure, we are going to focus on finance and innovation. That how uh, these two things makes up the biggest topic, water infrastructure. And I got to know from so many people that water infrastructure is very overlooked, and it is not taken into consideration, and this topic is people don't actually pay focus on, but it is a very important and prioritized topic. So with the I will be starting. I would request everyone to be attentive, to be more interactive. Please type your questions or any queries in between the webinar, and you can ask any question regarding any topic, and we will be open to all the questions. And it is very important that we in this webinar we interact, and we share what we are feeling on this topic. So if you can hear me, and I think there is no voice lag or sound problem, so please comment yes. And good morning everyone. Yeah. So we will be starting. What is water infrastructure? Or when we say what is infrastructure? So first thing we had to keep in mind that for clean water we need to invest in infrastructure. So if we are talking any everything and everything we are talking about just water, that how we can deal and how we can interact in a different way with water. And in my past webinars, this is my fourth webinar on the topic water, and there are many webinars to come. And my whole aim is to explain and to get the people aware about what is actually water and what all goes about water when the water reaches us, what is the backstory of that, when there are floods, when there are droughts, or when there are any risk or hazards. So the main aim is how we can assess the situation. So a lot of folks think about bridges and roads when they hear the word infrastructure. But one of the most important kinds of infrastructure exists largely underground, and it is out of sight. Because when we are walking on the roads, when we are in our home, or when we are going anywhere, the biggest infrastructure is the subsurface utilities. It is existing underground, and we are not even aware of it. So the pipes and the facilities that bring clean water to our homes and carry away runoff and waste are the most essential to the functioning of our commodities and communities. And everyone have heard and everyone know about the floods that are going in and around the world because the monsoon has hit, and I'm currently in India. And the situation here is same. We are having floods in different parts of our country, and it is all because of the lack of water infrastructure we have. And it is the most important thing, because to manage and to control every hazards, natural hazards that are coming, and the floods, everything can be controlled. Our drainage is what we make. These are all the part of water community and water infrastructure, but too often they are overlooked in conversation. And I would like to say that there are many things that people overlook in conversation about infrastructure investments, and people don't know about that what investments are going in our country. So it is very important that we know the global scenario and the global investment, because when we lack investment we lack water infrastructure. And because of the ongoing crisis, it has contributed to a greater health issues as well, because in most of the part of the world there are contamination, and there are costly water leaks due to corroding pipes. And this causes us a great problem, because this webinar aims to inform everyone that how we can go and how we can build the resilience of water service, and how we can work on our water infrastructure. So now water infrastructure, if we look to at our earth, and from a space it looks like a peaceful and calm planet. And when we see that there is all over water or there is just ground, but at the end we should remember that earth is made up of variety of substance, and what is going inside it, it's a very important thing. Because actually it is very important that we look into the core of the earth, because if there are subsurface utilities it will deteriorate over the time. They need the actual maintenance, but are we having that maintenance? I don't think so. So, nearly 15 years, I would share you with one context, that there was a world water panel, and there is a world water panel in which the organizations from all over the world come into one existence, and they discuss about the financing water infrastructure all around the world, because it is a very broad term. It includes water supply, it includes treatment, storage, water resource management, flood prevention, hydropower, generation of electricity, transportation systems. It includes a lot of things. So 15 years back, there was a world panel on financing water infrastructure. And you can just imagine that around 15 to 20 years have been elapsed that this all situation have taken place. And no one is actually going to about it, and no one is doing anything on that. And it is we lack knowledge, because when public lack knowledge, this is what actually is the problem. Because when we think and when we are not aware of the situation, that how we have to handle the droughts or how we have to handle floods, that's where we lack the information, and that's where we lack water infrastructure. Because when we think about that, at one point of time everyone was aware, and there was development in the water infrastructure, and there was wider engagement. But because in the time where there was introduction of renewable energy, and there was a large and growing body of evidence that is underlying, and that made the water infrastructure a casual relationship. Because for water security and economic growth, we need a very good water infrastructure. And it is the efforts to quantify this difference, that how we can make this an art, and how we can work on water infrastructure in coming days. Now when we look, these are some of the examples of water infrastructure that is in the world. And you can see there are canals, there are dams, and there are hydro electricity generation. So this all contributes to uh, water infrastructure, and this costs a lot, and this gives a lot, and this gives economic growth. Because when there is a gap between infrastructure, and that can approximate the loss around US dollar trillions. And uh, there are trillions of loss because of poor water infrastructure. And as they stand, the infrastructure that is necessary to make the SDGC achievable will not be financed, and there will be not that much of growth. Now when we look in other uh, on average about when we think that on average about 16% of the nation's piped water is lost due to leaks and system inefficiency, wasting about 7 billion gallons of clean and treated water every day. So when we look at a greater level and a greater approach, we think that everything is going, it's okay, that we are not facing any water issues. We are getting a sufficient amount of water at our home, and the supplies are good, and everything is okay. But actually, there is a huge amount of water loss because of poor water infrastructure. There are supplies, but actually making that supply work, you can see that there are loss of biodiversity, there is loss of conservation energy, there is loss of environment. Because while making that thing work, there is a huge difference what we make. Because water systems are capital intensive, but access to capital required for investment in technology. Because if you can say that we need to treat more water, so we need that more financial situation, we need more finance. But the biggest challenge that comes is to blend finance with water infrastructure and making people aware about it. Because there are budgets in every country. There are financing about different things. There are assets that how much there is the tenure, or how much tender is being generated for renewable energy, or for different prospectus. But do we actually see that how much money is generated in water infrastructure? Do we know this data about our country? I don't think so that we know, because the number of organizations are working, the number of people are working in this domain, and that looking after water infrastructure. And the biggest one challenge comes that do we know, are we aware that how to deal with this situation? Now, when we see this data, this is the global infrastructure transaction activity, and you can see that it has increased over a period of time. But in the countries like Europe, in the countries like Middle East or North America, there is no significant changes observed. So you can see, and you can very well examine this data, that there is no such progress, because over the years the population have increased from, if we say, in the last 1 decade or 1 or 2 decade, there is a huge growth of population, there is a huge growth of wastewater, there is huge growth of water demand. But the global infrastructure the amount or the transaction is not increase at that level. And if we see that in Asia or Australia there is an increase, because we have globalized, we have increased at that level. So in next, this data is the comparison between two types of countries, or two types of economies, the big economies, that is Latin America and Africa. And why I have done this comparison, because it is important when we are talking about a global scenario, that how we look to the world. It's not about our country, it's not about India or any other development country, or in the developing country, but it is about the world, that how the world is looking to this investment. So you can see that there is an increase, and there the percentage, that how much energy, or how the renewable energy, the investment in renewable energy is such a huge thing. But when we see that for other things, for environmental factors or for any other asset type, there is such a low, uh, what I say, that there is a low investment. And in America there is a huge slum, and there is a huge problem when we see that there is very less assets that are produced for water infrastructure. So it is very important that organizations, and including agencies that make and implement decisions about water resource, are particularly important for shaping urban water. And it is very important that we look to all the possibilities and go beyond their mandates, where their design and culture can have profound effects on whether and how innovation will result. Now, when we are talking about water infrastructure, it is very important to talk about water management and natural infrastructure in the environment, because even the nation's best water systems are ancient. Because when I talk about US, and we talk about that it's the superpower, or it's the biggest country in the world, and when we talk about US, and even it's the best water system, but it is ancient, it is not designed to today's need. So it is very important that we work on today's need, and we see and we look after that how we can how we can fight that thing, and how we can take it as a challenge, that how we can make the natural infrastructure with today's the problem arising, because there is less water, there is water stress all around the world. And as I have told in earlier webinars, that how the water scarcity is hitting and will hit everyone very hard, and it is coming, because we have a lot of challenges. We have climate challenge, we have tightening budgets, we have growing population, we have contaminants, and we have so many things that make everything very difficult. And it is very important that we look for this, because investing in nature for multiple objective is very important. As I would show you this graph, that you can see clearly that there are so many things. We have to look after the rain that is happening, we have to look after the surface runoff, and we have to look out the waters that are coming, we have to look out for the rivers. There are so many things that need to be, the water need to be invested in that, and there are so many things that people have to look for, because the legal control of water resources, and if any one of you know what is legal formalities, and there are so many things, if we have passed, we have made a great innovation, or we have evolved with a great idea, then the legal approach or the financing economical approach will come into that thing, because we have great solutions, we have great ideas that how we can work and how we can deal with the situation, and how we can uh, enhance the system. But when we see that, when we look after that, how actually we can evolve with our water infrastructure, we have to look in so many aspects, that are we doing any mishap with the current population, are we not, we have to consider the population that will come in the future time, we have to see that growth, we have to see the environmental issues, and we have to see everything in a more accurate and more uh, proper way, because it is very important that we look and that we see into the actual matter, that how we are going to deal with this. So natural infrastructure is very important, because we have to rejuvenate the lakes, the rivers, the small water bodies, and we have to work on that. The water infrastructure is not it's not a building type thing that we buy some land or we worked on that, and our project is done. No, it is a very long time prospectus when we are looking towards making a sustainable water infrastructure, and it is very important that we look on all aspects when we are thinking on that. Now coming upon the topic financing water. Now this is a very important and one challenge that comes between water infrastructure and water innovation, is that cost for innovation and the actual benefits that can be misaligned. Because when we are thinking that, there is always one thing between the government, between the government, between the people, and between the necessities they are getting and the water they are getting. Suppose there is one big thing, that is how well it has been financed and how well it has the money has been invested in it. Because when we think about the historical development, we don't have that funds, we don't have that innovation, we don't have that infrastructure. So to bring the infrastructure out, to bring the idea out, we need to think about that how we can think and how we can deal with financing water. Because financing water is a very big thing, because when we are thinking about economical development, when we are thinking about investment valuing, or anything, this is a biggest barrier that comes, because there are joint management, there are different organizations, there are there are companies, there are municipalities, and there are so many things that need investment, that need a proper system to work, and that needs different cost, that how we have to deal with it. And over the time we have seen that there is not enough investing in water sector, and this need to be changed, and this will change when the audience will look for it, when the people will look for it. Because when we ask for the public opinion, or when we ask for the vote or anything, we need to look upon so many factors. uh, we have to look upon so many things, that how we have to go about it, because financing water will make and overcome many barriers, and it will give you a very big approach and perspective on how we have to look, and how the solutions will be more nature based. There will be more water infrastructure if there will be the financing water will be in the right place. So when I talk about financing water, in my mind I look for 8 points. And when I look for 8 points, I would be glad to share you with with these 8 points, that how we can deal and how we can work on this. So the first point, that is, develop a topology of water infrastructure projects. Now, a topology of water infrastructure means that it will help to align specific projects with the most appropriate funding available. So there are classifiers include like scale, example from watershed to street; status, example from Delhi to Gurgaon; and function, that is water supply we are doing, or for wastewater management we are doing. And then we have to see the water operating environment, because it is very important to see that where we are working, is it a ownership, is it a governance, or it is a government regulating, or what types of regulation are there. So with the objective of financing water, we have to look upon how to develop a topology of water infrastructure projects. Now second is develop a topology of water infrastructure investors. Now, when we think about investors, investors can be anyone. Investors can be you, investors can be me. If I am telling you something and you are investing your time, then you are also an investor in this webinar. So it is very important to look upon this approach, that how first we are done with developing the infrastructure project topology, but now we need the investors for our idea, that how we can finance it. So a topology of investors will help to align specific projects with the most accessible financing that is available. And classifiers can include source, example public, private, or concessionary. And the most important thing when we are finding investors is that the risk and return appetite. Because when we think about risk and return, we think about economic, social, financial aspect, that how we are going to get this as a return after so and so years. So it is mandate to uh, go with time horizon, to be clear with the objectives, and to clear with the impact of that water infrastructure. And it is like I will be very glad to share that governments are and will remain that pivotal or the main investors in water infrastructure for the foreseeable future. And particularly when within emerging markets and developing economies, there is only one thing, that when the economies are generating, the government will never be able to take over this thing. And the many people ask me that if the water sector goes to a private company, and if the water sector is managed by a private organization, will it improve? Will the treatment and will the everything will improve? But the most important thing is that, however, given the pressure that some public sector is always one thing, that we need urgent better identification of the projects, and we need government to invest. Because whatever investment we do in the projects, whatever the private companies do the investment, but we can never emerge as a global uh, scenes, or we cannot work globally without the government helping. So projects that can be financed principally with the private capital, but when we need the improvisation, when we need the improving the classification on infrastructure project, we need government to finance. Because have you ever think that when if we talk about India, Reliance and Tata are handling so many projects, and they are handling so many things. We are in natural gas, we are in the all the fossil fuels generation, mining, and everything. But have you ever think that why they are not in water infrastructure or water sector? Why there is nothing like they are generating electricity as well? There are Reliance plants for generation in Mumbai and in many places, and there are pumps, gas generation pumps. But have you ever think that why there is no one investor in water sector? Because the government is the main investor and will be the main investor. Because when now I will be talking about the third point, when we broaden the attribution of risk and return. Because in water sector there is more approach, and there is more what we say that there is more scope for the people benefit. And where there is more scope for the people benefit, there will be more risk and more return. Because if people like it and if people are okay with it, then it's a boom. And when in we talk about in the context of water, if government says you that government is giving and government is providing you with the best water, and you don't need any RO or anything, and your home the water that will be delivered will be at the best quality. The TDS will be optimal, the pH will be optimal, and it will be full of minerals and everything. But will the people accept that? Will our country will accept that? Actually, no. In the starting, it never happened. I would tell you the example of Netherlands, and there what happened that in the starting people, when they were more advanced and with more the good quality of water start delivering by the government, but the people were not able to accept that thing. And people were, everyone was like that, no, we cannot drink tap water and it's unhealthy. But then they started the initiative that they started comparing the bottled water, and they started comparing RO water with the tap water. And the study found out that the tap water is much better. And in the last webinar I discussed about this thing only, that how water marketing and how that is affecting us, and they have captured the market about, and they have reduced the risk for the government. Because the government is working hard and they are delivering the optimal quality of water. But when we think about a greater perspective, that are people drinking that water, I don't think so. Everyone has RO in their home, and everyone is using the bottled water. Because when the risks that are linked to the investment, and when we talk about the bankability of water infrastructure project, it's a function of risk and return. So infrastructure risk is commonly deconstructed into exposure and uncertainty, while measures of return are almost exclusively financial. So government does not look about that people will pay for it. Government is not looking for that if we deliver the water, that the people will pay for it. Government is looking for that we have to deliver the optimal uh, quality of water so that people will drink it. So they are not expecting a return, and if they will not accept the return, there will be always the question of quality assurance. Now fourth topic that is very important, that how we enhance the public finance. Now what is public finance? When the social development goal 6 cannot be achieved without predictable and dedicated flows from the public sector towards meeting the financial requirement of water infrastructure. If we say that there is a water tax in your bill from now, and if we ask you to pay this amount of just this percentage for water, then what will be your reaction? Actually, if you pay suppose $1 for this much period, and if you on your each bill there is a $1 tax, or this much 2%, 3%, or 5% tax of water tax, then I just assure that by 2030 there will be affordable drinking water for all, and there will be centrality of public financing in the next decade, and everything will change. But we have to look after that how we can work on that opportunities, and how we can work on public finance, and how we can deal with that situation. Because when we think that this thing exploit the opportunities of purpose finance, because exploiting the expanding universe of especially purpose finance is key to bridging the infrastructure gap. If I have given you this thing that we are not focusing on infrastructure, water infrastructure, then what is the gap? This is the gap. The public finance is the gap. So emerging opportunities and emphasize low carbon, climate resilient, sustainable growth. They include climate finance, that green bonds, etc. We need corporate investment, sustainability bonds, etc. And we need regional initiatives. That is, example you have seen the China's One Belt, One Road. It's a very big, and in Paris, and in there is a Green Climate Fund (GCF), and they have given around US dollar 100 billion per annum in climate finance. So why there is so much amount of finance generation from public? Because there, if we have to fill that gaps, and if we have to fill that thing, there is always we have to look for the public finance. So now in the last three topics I will be covering that how we can optimize the value of development finance. So development finance can play a unique role in converting investors and financiers and to collaborate on complex projects that would otherwise be out of scope for any single financing institution. If I say that government can do this, or if I say that government can help do that and they can construct the big dams, but actually without the investors and without the financiers, the government is also helpless. They are the biggest investors, but they are not the only investors. So by coordinating preparation, structuring, and implementation, the development finance can materially improve the pipeline of all the bankable projects. Now, second last point, that improve project selection and development. Now, when I talk about improve project selection and development, the infrastructure gap can be partially bridged without additional finance. Yes, how? Because when we focus on area that is include upstream development, that is pipeline building, and then projection selection, that is portfolio optimization. When we select the project, we don't have to look at how much if you have seen, and if you know, and if you have the information regarding tenders, then I would say that there is a specific column that, and there is a specific guideline that it will be judged over the basis of how much the company is costing to them, and how they have to represent the cost and the products they will be using. But actually there should be the portfolio optimization, that how innovative the idea of that investor is, and how innovative the idea of that builder or any organization is, so that there will be the proper amount and proper approachable of asset utilization. Because getting more out of existing projects, it is very important, because there are many projects in India and in Asiatic countries, in Europe, they are at the stage that is never going to be completed. So it is very important that we look after this issue, because it is the one obvious way to reduce the quantum of funding needed for infrastructure spending. Because there are many projects, if that worked upon, and if there is an innovative idea to complete that projects, then it will save a lot of amounts for the newer projects. So it's a very important thing. Now, in the second thing, in the last top, I will be discussing, and this is a very important point, and I don't think so that people will be knowing about this, is distinguishing between capex and opex. Now, what it is, that in developed markets, investors are often enthusiastic about operating assets, but wary of the construction risk in many projects. Meanwhile, building new capacity is often much easier to source, because when there is a new idea, you have seen many startups nowadays coming into existence, and many new ideas coming into existence, and many new approaches coming into existence, because it is very easy to build new capacity and to fund a new capacity. A new idea came, and there will be a lot of funders for operating expenditure. But what is capex? That securing sustainable finance for both capital expenditures. Now, what it is, that in global infrastructure, we have a lot of deficient that mask different challenges between the developed and the developing world. Because everyone will be able, if I say that today you are going to the fund a startup in USA, everyone will fund that. There will be a lot of investors, but when I am talking about are you ready to invest in India, there will be a lot of questions. There will be a lot of risk analysis. There will be a lot of market analysis, that will it be possible, will it be easy to work on that scenario, and how the investors will look that thing. So it is very important that how we secure that in all the situation, in as well as in our water expenditure market, in developing countries and in developed countries, we both get capital expenditures, and opex is vital to closing the funding gap. So opex is like, it is a investors to commit, that how these investors are happy to invest in assets that require capital for expansion or maintenance. Because we don't need the investment in the new projects, we need to look for the investment in the projects that are actually running. We need investors for the projects that need maintenance. Then only our system will grow, and then only we will be able to cater the financial gap. And then there will be the more blended and hybrid model of finance. There will be private sectors evolving who will be able to maintain. Obviously we need funding for the government projects, but during the maintenance, we can always work, and we can work always upon that how new companies will evolve, and innovative ideas will come for the maintenance, that will revisit tariffs, taxes, and transfers. That the most important three T's in financial aspect when we look. Now I come into the before completing our finance thing. Of other times, water companies find that innovations can offer short-term benefits and immediate savings. So innovations are very important thing, because when we are talking about finance, the municipal utility and districts in many parts of in the world, they often see that the sooner such successful systems take root in the developed world, the sooner that can be initiated by the quickly growing megacities of Africa, of Asia, of South America, because these are the countries that need actual innovations. We need the actual innovations. So researchers at the United Nations University, and researchers at many big universities in the world anticipate that wastewater treatment will be the crucial technology in wastewater scarce regions in the coming years, and have actually found that only one third of the world's countries have the relevant expertise on the subject. Now just imagine that what population India have. We have 130 billion of population, and just imagine what is the population of the world, and you will see that only the one third of the world's countries have the expertise on this subject. That's what this topic and this webinar whole point is, that how we can make us aware about these all issues that is currently in the world, that how we can go about water infrastructure, how we can go with the financing issues in the world, and how we can innovate with the new ideas. And that is very important, that how we deal with these type of situations is actually a challenge, because the challenge of innovation is sharpened by the inertia in the water industry. And there have been modern examples of large scale sweeping changes in urban water systems, but such instances have been rare. For example, in the United States, a dramatic increase in the use of improved wastewater treatment technology, and it has been followed by the passage of Safe Drinking Water, Clean Water Act in the water sector. So until and unless you will not be aware of these situations, and until and unless you will not be aware of these examples in the world, you will not be aware of how to deal with this situation in your our own country, because until unless you will not point on the wastewater treatment and you will not actually consume that tap water, there will be no act for the tap water, there will be no act for safe drinking. So such examples of rapid changes are the exceptions that prove the rule that water management in general has tended to evolve slowly through modern history, particularly in the absence of dramatic regulatory pressure and public funding. So although there was no public funding, and although there was so many issues in the world, but then also there were the acts that I would say the Clean Water Act came in 1977, and the Safe Drinking Water Act in USA came in 1974. So just imagine, there was no public funding at that time, there was no such recognition at that time, but at that time also, on the basis of past and present changes in urban water system, they were able to cater that situation. And these forces, including climate change, increasing urbanization, and the decay of existing infrastructure, are already stressing the ability of urban water systems. And to meet this expectation and this performance, we have to simultaneously increase awareness of the environmental impacts of water use. We In my home, I currently have the water testing machines, I have pH testers, I have TDS meters, I have water level indicators for my overhead pumps, and everything I have, because I am aware about the situation. I should be knowing that what TDS or what pH of water I am getting in my tap water, or what TDS of water my RO is giving. Everyone should know and aware about it. This is what the innovation of technology and with the innovation of idea is, that how we look to this approach and how we look to this model of technology and how we use it in daily life. So there are many things, because the impact of innovation depends heavily on how much it disrupts existing modes of operation. Because if I say that today I will be at your home and I will just check all your losses in the system, and I will just optimize your system, and at your home there will be no losses, there will be the smart water home, what I say. But if I or just dig your ground and just destroy your home, is that an innovative idea? I don't think so. Because the core question is whether established capabilities in a firm or in a region or in an organization or in a town is suited to support a technological novelty or technological development, or whether entirely new capabilities and routines will have to be built up. Because uh, I was working in IIT Delhi, and there were so many things, because they had the water infrastructure that is old as 60 years. So when we think about that, at that point of time, 60 years or 50 years back, when the institution was set up, and when we looked at the current models that was constructed, constructed 20 years back or 30 years back, they came up with that idea. And there was no such innovative innovation that took place in that small region, and this is all across Delhi. This is the situation, that there is a huge impact of older infrastructure that is being built. And so we need sustaining innovations, because we need that after 10 years or after 20 years, will we able to cater the needs with the current situation. So we have to analyze the situation in the past, in the present changes, and in the coming future expectations. So in contracts, we need to generate new standards and trajectories for performance. Perhaps adding additional metrics, enabling new and different users, and creating new market. And it should be perhaps surprisingly that in the case study of disk drive industry, I would tell that there were disruptive technologies used. There were so many things that were used, but actually the minor technological errors and minor technological advances can change everything. and they can change every each and every all the performance that lacks there. And in the earlier slides I told you that on average about 16% of the nation's piped water is lost due to leaks and system inefficiencies, and it wastes more than 7 billion gallons of clean and treated water every day. And this is not about the world, this is about everywhere. Now, when we talk about water distribution, when we talk about innovation, the one thing that we need to remember, and that thing that we need to be clear about, that this is the ideal water distribution and use cycle. We use the water from surface or groundwater, we supply to the city or country or the region of use. We treat the water to meet the end use water quality standards. Then the water distribution goes to consumers. It goes to agriculture, residential, commercial, industrial use. And then was wastewater collection, wastewater treatment, recycle water distribution, and this cycle goes. Now, what is my whole point to show you this? That we need innovation in this cycle. We need not have a new cycle. This is what we have, this is what we need, and this is what actually is important, because this is an actual thing that we need to look upon and that we need to look and see, that the water sector is also geographically fermented, and in many regions of the country and in many regions of the world, management of water supply and wastewater is fragmented by function. So, water supply entities generally supply, convey, purify, distribute water to a particular sector of the population and to the particular economy, and the wastewater entities generally collect, treat, and dispose of the wastewater. So, these are the things that we have. We need innovation in these things. We need not add new process, or we need not add new steps. We need innovation in these topics and these aspects, and we need to look upon that how we can deal and how we can convey and how we can help in this situation. The water distribution is coming to consumers should know that how much water they are taking and how much water they are billed for, and at what quality of water they are paying for, and what government is paying. So this is an ideal cycle that we have to look and work upon. Now, when we are talking about innovation, the state of innovation in the water sector is the most important, and that we looked upon, that this is the market size, this is the internet size of the my major international water markets. And you can see the United States water market and India's water market, and we have such a huge gap. And when we see the population gap, you all know that what is the population of United States of America and what is the population of India. So actually this graph should be inverse, or this should be opposite to the India should be at the position of United States, if we talk about that actually what international water market we need and what is the market size should be there. But actually the fundings are never applied and never imposed in the proper and correct way, that India is remains here and United States of America remains here. And this is the very big point that we lack. And when we look upon this, the ultimate goals of the water sectors are to provide customers with reliable and safe water supplies, and to dispose of water wastewater safely, and in complies with water quality regulations, several assumptions, historical guided water managers. When we go out, and I have been in one wastewater treatment plant recently, and I went and I discussed, and there was one person, and he knew, and he was working there from past 30 years, and he knew more than a recently qualified engineer. Why is this type of situation in India? Because there the market is not evolved, and market don't know about so many things that are overlooked and that are not actually seen upon. So I have read one document, and EPA said that about 53% of the water sector's capital spending goes to system expansion. So now just imagine, where we have water treatment plants to cater this much amount of population, and they are not working optimally. So we create a new treatment plant so that we can cater that population which already have that treatment plant. So there is a huge gap about how the innovation and how the took place. So there is the use of new technologies, but we already have the infrastructure for that. But we have to maintain it, we have to evolve that infrastructure. We already have a treatment plant that is treating the water in primary and secondary stage level, but why are we not treating it to tertiary level at that same treatment plant? We can do it, we can evolve with the infrastructure. But no, what people do that they expand and they put their whole economy and the whole funding into expansion. But we don't need expansion, we need only replacing the current infrastructure, and we need actual growth, that how we can deal and how we assess that situation in this world. Now in this map I would show that how these are the patent filings with patent cooperation treaty for water purification and clean energy. So now you can see that renewable and non-fossil fuels have the so much increase and so much amount of patents and for innovative ideas in this world. But no one is going in this water sector, no one is going in water infrastructure, and no one is focusing on this aspect, that how we can go and how we can solve actually this thing, and how we can work on this approach. That it is very important that we look on this data, that China, European Union, Japan, South Korea, United States, and all other countries including our country, we are not focusing and we are not evolving with the patents of water purification. We are not evolving with the patents of we are not coming with the new ideas from a very long time. Why? Why this topic is not taken into consideration? Why this topic is overlooked? Why this topic is not being in a greater state which it can be? So this is a very important thing, that everything should be looked upon, because it is very important that we focus on the innovative ideas that follow these type of things. Because when we see that these are the innovation indicators, patents are the innovation indicators. There is less public investment in water purification, there is less public involvement, there is less IP strategies there, and there is, and when we see about IT, and when we see about other any energy resources, there's a huge increase in patent. So why this is there? Because it provides a useful tool to compare innovation patterns. But when we see that actually innovation should happen in water sector, and when these things should happen in our own water innovation, so the part to water innovation always lack the people. Now this is the last graph that I am showing, and see that this is the tariff price and domestic use per capita. Now when I show you this data, and this that this is the domestic use per tariff price, now you can just see that what is the use of India. This is India, and this is Germany, this is United Kingdoms, this is Denmark, and I would say that they don't have even the one third or one fourth of the population of India. But when we see that pricing of water in the United States affects innovation in several ways. First, it reduces the revenue available to water suppliers. It reduces the invest in innovation. It reduces so many aspects in all over the world. And the inadequate pricing can create a vicious cycle. It can disrupt the whole cycle, where water suppliers are unable to replace existing infrastructure, and which can in fact reduce the revenues generated. It can reduce the economy, and it can and when we see that if the tariff price and the domestic use per capita is currently well aligned, that 7 billions of gallons of clean water per day can be reduced. So it is very important that we look. So firstly, when we see that how inadequate pricing affects us, secondly, the underpricing of water can bias the decision of water managers. So if you go to United Kingdom, or if you go to France or anywhere, the bottled water is so expensive. If you buy a Nestle, which is available in all over the world, and when we see the pricing of water in France or in UK or in any other country is so much, why? This is because the underpricing of water can bias the decision of investors. When we don't have the amount of water that we are paying for, we just lack, and we just fails with the water infrastructure and maintaining water finance. So it is very important that we look to this thing, and it is very important that there should be a uh, proper amount of water quantification, and there should be a proper amount of price that the people should pay, because water should never be a commodity that is available for free, because when it is free the people don't respect it, and people don't understand that it can cause a huge problem and huge issue for everyone. So for an example, as noted earlier, the extraction of water from a river or stream can have significant environmental effect and environmental costs, because prices do not reflect such cost. If you are extracting water from a river, there should be a more uh, price you should pay for it. If you are extracting a groundwater, there should be a more price that you have to pay for it. If the water is treated, there should be less amount of price that you have to pay for it, because then only you will able to quantify the actual water, and there will be a more investment instead and in there should be more investment in water recycling and reuse. And this will not give a very environmental cost effective, but it will be the solution to the problem, that is same for the failure to account for the cost of carbon emission in energy decisions. So when we are taking these type of surface water, and when we are using the water that is available everywhere, we need to look upon the factors that is very important. Third, the underpricing of water can undercut incentives that water users would otherwise have to invest in new technologies. So if there are proper amount of water payment, then why you have to why you have to invest in $100 or $500 RO system at your home? Just imagine that why you have to invest in such a huge price. So it is very important that for the reducing incentives, some water suppliers in United States or UK, in the more bigger approach countries, they don't have the meter with their water, and that's where they lack. So it is very important that we should have the water meters, so that we engage water supplying and water demand, and there we should be average cost pricing also, so that we can actually see that in the areas where there is less consumption of water, there should be less pricing, and in the areas where there is a more consumption of water, there should be more prices, so that there should be effective measures that could be taken out. So it is very important that we look upon, because when I'm concluding about this thing, and I will be concluding about that, and the water sectors like in US or UK, while these are the largest in the world, they have shown and they have promote, adopt and implement new technology innovations. And why they have shown, and these they have promote, it is not the question that they are promoting this, but the question is that the growth and the aspect they are taking is very slow, and the consumption is very high. So in the sectors, in the while largest in the world water sector, they have the slow innovative ideas, then they have the slow approach to adopt. So the countries like us, just imagine that how we are evolving with this. That's why there are social sustainable development goals. And there are and you can see the sixth goal, that is clean water and sanitation, and all these goals are one sustainable development goals. They make one SDG, because everything is linked here. From 1 to 17, everything and every point is linked. When we talk about clean water, we talk about life on land, and when we are talking water, we talk about life below water as well. And when we talk about life on land, we talk about climatic actions. And when we talk about everything, the economic growth, that is very important, that comes into the picture. So comparatively robust innovations rates in the cleaner energy sector, and it highlights that there is slow innovation rate in the water industry. So the more there will be increase in renewal sectors, there should be more opportunities for everyone and everywhere in the world. So there should be a cleaner approach for water infrastructure. There should be more facilitated greater innovations. There should be the governance factor should be looked upon, that how the governance is looking after it. I would request everyone who is attending this webinar that go and check that what are the investments that are done in water sector or water infrastructure at your place, in your country, in your region, and what is your municipality doing, and what is your township, how your township is planning to go through the water infrastructure, and what are the financial aspects and innovations are coming into the market. And soon I will be sending everyone the newsletters about water innovations in and around the world, so that you get to know that how the water sectors are evolving. And the my analysis show that most of the barriers to innovation are related to the way we govern water. If we start governing water in a better way, and in the most appropriate and most excellent way, then we would be able to see that how we can just manage the situation we have, and how we can manage the partnerships that we already have. So we have offered a specific special recommendation explaining how each of this policy and governance factors can be revised and reformed. I would request everyone to suggest that how we can evolve with the governance we have in the water industry, how we can evolve with that, how we can identify the new challenges, and how we can work on that state's challenges. And there should be how we can find the opportunity areas in our country, that if we have to look for that local governments, how we have to approach water authorities. If you check the water in the tap water, you are entitled to call the water authorities in your region that I am not getting an appropriate amount of water. So this is a very important thing, that we streamline regulations across and within sectors to enable an access to financial fundings, and to work upon sustainable development goals. And that is should be the our app view, because if we are the professionals in the today's world and current market, we have to look upon this thing. Now I would like to end my seminar, and I will be glad that everyone attends this webinar, and I would be sharing a link on the chat and on the all the registered participants as well about the feedback, and that how you like this. And I'll be glad to thank that I would be glad to thank World Water Council and Stanford Woods Institute for the Environment, that with the research they are doing and with the data they have provided the world, that is commendable. And the data I would request everyone to go on the sites of World Water Council and Stanford Woods Institute for the Environment, and see the research they have offered in the past time, and the work they have done is extremely good. And not least, but if anyone has questions and anyone has any thing to answer, and anyone has any query, I would love to answer that. So please put your questions and queries in the chat box, and I would be glad to answer that. Thank you, everyone, and it was a wonderful session. And please, uh, you can ask any Q&A. The Q&A is open, and you can ask any question in the chat box. Thank you. And I would request you to please everyone comment uh, in the live chat so that I can take the participant count, and please comment with your email ID so that I can just check the chat, and I can see check the participant list. Thank you. Yeah, so there's one question that in what way we can manage the water resource effectively. See, managing water resource is not an hard, it's not a hard task. It's not an impossible task what we can do. We can start the effective use of water resource from right our home. I would suggest that we all have overhead tanks at our homes, but how many people actually have the water meters at home? How many people actually have the water levelers or water controllers at home? So this is a very big thing, and this is a very small thing, that in $20 to $30 we can just install the water leveler and water alarm at home, and we can optimize the usage from just our home. We can install in our gardens, we can install the drip irrigation system, and we can construct that. That's a DIY thing, and that's a very easy task that we can do, and that's we can do at from the comfort of our home. Why? Because when we install anything, and in your community, in your society, when you install anything, you make an example for a lot of people, and you just not help the other people, and you just not you just it's a very uh, important thing that we work upon these things, and we worked upon these issues, that when the small leaks that we ignore can save a lot of amount of water resource when we count at a greater level. And I would suggest that please check your water, tap water, check the quality of tap water, and please go and see that what is the difference between the tap water and the RO water you are drinking. Because I suggest you to avoid RO water, because the wastage that RO water is producing is like 4 times. If you want to drink a 1 liter of water, you are just using and consuming around 5 liters and 4 liters of water. So that's a complete waste, and I would suggest that there should be a wastewater tank in everyone's house, that the water collected from the sinks and from the RO water should be collected and used for gardening purposes, and for for if we don't need a special infrastructure, we can have that tank so that we can use it for many other purposes. Because the wastewater that is going, the water that is sewage water, or from the excreta that we produce, is completely different from the water that we produce in kitchen, so we can reuse that water as well. I have given the feedback link in the chat, so everyone can please fill that uh, feedback link. There is one question that whether public-private partnership model in water sector will give a sustainable water infrastructure in our country. So that's a very important question, that whether public-private partnership model. So what is public-private partnership model? And that's what I am understanding, that when we talk about public and private partnership, that's two complete different thing. Because public, there should be the involvement of government at all sectors. If the government is not involved, there will be no proper optimization and utilization of that activity for the public use. Because when we are seeing, and when we are looking at the greater approach, because if we just give everything to the private organizations, then the public will never be able to connect with the government, and there will be no link, and there will be no approach for the public benefit. Because when in the webinar I only told that the to assess the situation and to assess the whole situation, we need government to be with us. So, and the public partnership is very important because on the day to day basis, it will change and it will give a whole greater aspect. Because when we start from our own home and our own community, and we can save a lot of water from our home, just imagine that when we stand out and we demand for the greater water infrastructure, then how we can change it. Because when public demand for the better roads, we get better roads. So why public is not demanding for proper water infrastructure? It can give a new and altogether different approach for sustainable water management. If not means, then how government can regulate the PPP models in water sectors to achieve sustainable water infrastructure. So, and how government can do that is then also comes with the public partnership, and the government should introduce and start the initiatives to optimize their treatment plants. They optimize the water they are delivering, because if they evolve with the tap water, and if they promote their tap water, then there will be the whole new approach and whole new understanding that how the people start using the water. There should be the regulations on groundwater usage, and in most of the cities and most of the countries there, the groundwater usage in the domestic homes is totally banned. You need to use the government supply, so there should be proper measures and proper advertisements and proper approach towards the people that how they can change, and there should be a proper sustainable model towards the tap water. Just there should be a tap water a perspective. There should be a change in tap water perspective in the people, and if that comes into the market, there will be a huge boom in our government industry. Because when people will use tap water and they will avoid the usage of RO water or any other bottled water, there will the government will be able to evolve at a much better perspective. I think I was able to answer your question. There are no other questions. So I would thank everyone who have participated in the webinar, and thank you for participating in the webinar. And I would love and I would like that if anyone like this webinar, then please go and share this topic with everyone, and please watch the other webinars that is available on this YouTube channel. And I will be coming with more such webinars that will be more informative for the people. And I'm really sorry if any point I was not able to cover or it was not understandable. And I would be really happy that you share your questions and you share your suggestions and anything for improvement on the email ID that is visible on the screen. And I would love that more and more people connect with this cause, because this is a water initiative by me, and so that we can take the topic water, because it is a very vast topic to all the people out there. It is very important that how we share and connect with the idea that how the water and water management works, and water as a domain works, and how you can focus on this topic. So I would be love that if you suggest new topics in the water, and what you need to understand in water, and how we can go through it. And anyone watching this webinar after this, so I would love to that you can share your comments and ideas on the comment box. And there is this certificate, this form will be open, the feedback link will be open for all. So anyone who is watching this webinar and anyone will be watching this webinar can just go and fill the form, and there will be no issues in the certificate. And after one point everyone can get the certificate. You just have to gain the knowledge. Certificate is not an issue. So just please give your feedback, and your feedback is very important. And please like and share this webinar as much as possible. And if you like the content, and if you want more contents to come, please subscribe to this channel so that more content comes to this. Thank you everyone. Thank you for attending the webinar.